Shri Caitanya Shri Upandramishanama Vaishnava Pandikadani Sadguna Pradana Shri Hatta Nivashi, a resident of Shri Hatta, Shri Upendra Mishra Nama, by the name of Upendra Mishra, Vaishnava, a devotee of Lord Vishnu, Pandita, learned, Dhani, rich, Sadguna Pradhana, qualified with all good qualities. Translation. There was also Sri Upendra Mishra, a resident of the district of Sri Hatta. He was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, a learned scholar, a rich man, and a reservoir of all good qualities. Please repeat. There was also Sri Upendra Mishra, a resident of the district of Sri Hatta. He was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, a learned scholar, a rich man, and a reservoir of all good qualities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Upendra Mishra is described in the Gaurya Ganodeda Shatipika, verse 35, as the Gopal named Parjanya, the same personality who was formerly the grandfather of Lord Krishna, appeared as Upendra Mishra at Sri Hatta and begot 7 sons. He was a resident of Dhaka Dakshina Grama in the district of Sri Hatta. There are still many residents of that part of the country who introduce themselves as belonging to the Mishra family of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is I'll continue reading just a very short purport. So this is about, as the previous verses and purports explain, the gradual manifestation of Krishna's family in Sri Caitanya Lila. So great personalities, including Krishna's father and mother taking birth, getting ready for the advent of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And by the time Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu appears, it's all set. The stage is set for the Gaurya Lila, basically, the most beautiful, sweetest pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. As we relish, as sadhakas, we relish Krishna's pastimes, we also greatly relish Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And this morning I was listening to one lecture by Srila Prabhupada. He was translating Narottama Das Thakur's songs, very beautiful songs, and constantly emphasizing the importance of surrendering to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Because if we do surrender to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda Prabhu is very pleased. And if Lord Nityananda is pleased, our life is successful. Narottama Das Thakur emphasized this very clearly, and Srila Prabhupada was giving a short purport on this. So you can see, if you read, if you attended the classes the last few weeks, how the stage is setting up. Krishna is manifesting through his personal, close associates, confidential associates, and his entire entourage, family of Sri Vrindavan Dham taking birth in different positions in Navadvip area, particularly in that pastimes. So we can see as we're reading the next verses, we just explain the great personalities. who actually come and facilitate Mahaprabhu's pastimes and teachings, which is very important to understand, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his confidential pastimes and very deep transcendental meaning and experiences what Mahaprabhu exhibit in this world as a combined form of Radha and Krishna, tasting the mellows of pure love, Mahabhav, and his close associates, and then also expressing his great compassion for the fallen conditioned souls of this age. So, as followers of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we take up the same mood and sentiment and feeling for the fallen conditioned souls. And today we are very fortunate because we're going to celebrate Rath Yatra in Gold Coast. Please come if you can. This is a very, very important way of, a very, I would say, classical way of expressing our love and compassion for the fallen conditioned souls, our brothers and sisters in the material world. We're spreading the holy names, the glories of the holy names far and wide. People can hear this beautiful transcendental vibration, Krishna himself, in the form of Sri Nama, holy names of Krishna. So, when we participate in this Sankirtan consciousness, Sankirtan mood, we also become enlivened, invigorated with spiritual ecstasy. We just want to become part of this. This is when Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu helps us individually and collectively. So we can become successful. So, and by this taste, by this enthusiasm, we forget our personal difficulties. We overcome them very easily. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so kind and so merciful that he can turn the most difficult things to be the easiest to pass. Without his mercy, even the easiest things can become the worst and most difficult thing to overcome. Everything depends on his mercy. So as we become more and more conscious of Krishna's glories and pastimes and his positions, hearing the teachings of the Gita, and not to speak of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, we understand that everything is under supreme control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What we have to do is just to give our hearts, our words, our body, action to the service and to the pleasure of the Lord. This is the ultimate formula. When we have this pure intention, then a lot of our difficulties, challenges, gradually disappear, individually and collectively. Krishna consciousness is the solution to all problems. Until we have that awareness that Krishna is our best friend, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme enjoyer. When we have this, then our life is perfected, and we feel content and satisfied. There's no need of any ambitions or material agendas or personal desires, because we don't feel the urge anymore. We don't feel that. As long as we give our hearts to Krishna, our life will be satisfied. We feel very content and very joyful. So I've noticed that when we distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and when we do Harinam, people sense not only our sincerity but our joy and happiness, which is the real preaching. And we feel very happy. This is what attracts people to us. The joy and happiness of the devotees. So it is very important that we complete and perfect our lives under the guidance of great devotees, great spiritual masters, our Shiksha Gurus, Diksha Gurus, and take advice from them, take the humble position, and gradually develop these nice qualities of a Vaishnava. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is setting the scene, gradually sending all these great personalities so he can perform his beautiful pastimes. So this is this kind of referring to the verses. I'll just read a couple of more verses, just continuing the personalities. So text 57, 58. Sapta Mishra Tanra Putra Sapta Rishvara Kamsari Pramananda Padmanabha Veshvara Jagannatha Jadana Janardana Tralokyananath Nadiyate Gangavasa Kaila Jagannatha. Translation. Upendra Mishra had 7 sons who were all saintly and most influential. Number 1, Kamsari. Second, Pramananda, Padmanabha, Sareshwara, Jagannatha, Janardana, and Tralokyanath. Jagannath Mishra, the 5th son, decided to reside on the bank of the Ganges Nadia. So we can see the verse mentioned Jagannath Mishra. So who was Jagannath Mishra? So we can see the setting, the parents appearing, Mother Sachi, Jagannath Mishra, all great personalities will come gradually. And then the advent of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And you can see even before, like Lord Nityananda appears, and then we have a Golpunim, the full moon, and even astrologically, if there's calculations showing the auspiciousness of the alignments of the stars and the planets, everything just favorable. Similarly, Krishna's appearance was like that too. Everything was favorable. Everything was just at the right moment, right muhurta, we call muhurta, auspiciousness. So auspiciousness takes place. Wherever Krishna is, auspiciousness takes place. And when Caitanya Mahaprabhu comes, happiness, joy, peace and love and auspiciousness altogether appears. Caitanya Mahaprabhu, as we all know from hearing Srila Prabhupada's teachings and reading the Shastras, that Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the most kind, the most merciful, and most compassionate form of Krishna. Directly Radha and Krishna. He has that feminine, compassionate mood also. A golden avatar, Gora Sundara, Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, to help us. And of course, we are very fortunate because Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally appears in this sampradaya, which is very unique. Brahma, Madhvacharya, and Gaudiya sampradaya. And I had a discussion with some of the Sri Vaishnava Pandits many years ago. Some are very scholarly Pandits. And I was just curious whether they have any mentioning of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the Shastras, because they study mainly the Yajurveda and many other aspects of the Shastras. And after thorough study, he said that actually there's mentioning. They don't call him Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they call him Golden Vishnu. So of course the emphasis on Vishnu and Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan, and they have that Vaikuntha awe and reverence. We all know Sri Vaishnava was like that. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he used to catch a train from Jagannath Puri to Sri Rangam in the 1920s and had discussions with the great acharyas of Sri Vaishnavas on this particular subject. Because as we know, the Sampradayas, they had a particular projection of Vaishnava teachings, and they're authentic, of course. But how fortunate we are. And many of these great saintly personalities, including the Madhva, original Orthodox Sampradaya, Madhvacharya, followers of Madhvacharya, Sri Vaishnavas, and many other Sampradayas, the other 2 Sampradayas also, Rudra Sampradaya, Sanat Kumar, their great personalities, they acknowledge that there is a special significance to Brahma Madhya Gaudiya Sampradaya, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chosen to appear in this Sampradaya and blessed this Sankirtan mission, Sankirtan Yagna. So it's a very powerful formula. Some scholars even say this is like the 5th Sampradaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just started his most powerful formula, the Sankirtan Yagna, the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is what we have to do today. Please come as, there's going to be, I already know, it's going to be ecstatic. I'm going to take big, my book bag is already packed. Packed with Science of Self-Realizations, Bhagavad Gitas, and I'm getting a lift just for that. Boxes of books. And Garuda Prabhu and myself and Nandu, we're going to take the books and we chant the holy names loudly from our heart. This is a very special opportunity. A very special opportunity. Sankirtan Yagna. Harinam Sankirtan. And Jagannath, as we all know, is the Ishta deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the main worshipable deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagannath. So it's, you see, our whole sampradaya, my interpretation of this purport also, it comes down to simply ecstatic. Srila Prabhupada gave us an invaluable gift, the mercy of the holy name, mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the beautiful devotees around. Just like yesterday, we relishing the holy name. Amazing. So after some time, you feel that nothing else, just the holy name. We just wanted to give our heart to Krishna. Beautiful kirtans. Everyone was chanting sincerely. And then eventually becomes like, just like, this is when unity. There's unity of hearts. We all different personalities, individuals, different levels of realizations. But when we chant together, we start feeling that love and attachment to Radha and Krishna, which is really the true purpose and ultimate goal of life, to feel these emotions and give our hearts to Krishna. And we have nothing else to worry about. Of course, we get distracted, but this is the main thing we have to meditate on a daily basis. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada set the morning program nicely. So Shikshaka is very important to remind us what is going on and our relationship with Krishna, and renouncing our material attachments and just giving ourselves to Krishna, the holy name, and devotional service. So Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, appears. Many of these holy places are still there. We visit Navadvip and Mayapur and all that region there, full of pastimes. And if you're very pure-hearted, truly pure-hearted, when you're in Mayapur, you just surfing the ecstasy of love of Godhead. So much nectar. So much nectar, you can just feel these pastimes. Especially if you throw yourselves in the Harinam, in the kirtans, kirtan rasa. Srila Prabhupada actually gives a nice introduction into the songbook, a short one, that kirtan rasa, the congregational chanting of the holy names, is the safest place in this world. It's the safest place to be, and we chant together. Every way, safest. This is the Yuga Dharma, and we have to grab it, we have to hold on to it. It's the most precious, invaluable jewel that no one can give us except Guru and Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So today, Jagannath festival is an extremely inspiring, empowering, and also purifying. This is a rapid purification. When we do Sankirtan, any form of Sankirtan, distributing prasadam, living on the farm preaching, because there's always preaching going on. And what we do also preaching, our personal example. taking care of the land, taking care of the cows, taking care of the deities. Everything is so important. It all goes together, cannot be separated. And of course, it's spearheading towards the outgoing preaching, which is really distributing transcendental literature, Srila Prabhupada's teachings, Srila Prabhupada's books, spreading the mercy of the holy name, distributing prasadam, very important, blessed prasadam to the conditioned souls. And this is the desire of the great acharyas. Let's become instruments in that. Let's unite in that. And in that way there is unity in diversity. We all different personalities, come from different walks of life, different age, different this and that. And we realize this is our common platform to please Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Where is the difficulty? What is the difficulty? There's no difficulty. So we become truly happy. And that's why we are here, by the way, because we all want to feel good. We want to feel that love and happiness. As conditioned souls, we are anandamaya, pleasure seekers, happiness seekers. So let's connect to that mercy. And it's not difficult. That's why Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing, keeping the association of devotees very tight. Don't let it go, because then, as Srila Prabhupada says in many of his lectures, if you give up the association of devotees, then what is your association? You're going to associate with Maya. So simple as that. Maya association. So which is better? Which is better, Prabhu? Krishna's association or Maya's association? If you take Krishna's association, the devotee's association, then we will be happy and we will be fixed. Nishtha, steady, fixed. And hold on to this value. And this is when we actually get the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu wants us to make the effort. The great acharyas are there, the teachings are there, all the tools are there, but we still have to make the effort. Krishna helps those who help themselves. We still have to make the effort. We still have to study. We still have to serve the devotees. And this is when the mercy comes. This is when we get the strength and help of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So the formula is to please Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu is very pleased, most pleased when we surrender to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And how to surrender to Caitanya Mahaprabhu? We surrender to Shri Guru. And how to surrender to Shri Guru? Follow his instructions and serving his devotees. Very simple. We are servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Every morning before we dressing the deities, we read these prayers. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu made it very clear. I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Vaishya, Sudra, Kshatriya, not a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanapasta, Sannyasi. I'm none of these things. I'm just simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. We sing these verses every morning before we even enter the deity room as a purification of the mind, to put aside this conditional mind and just give our heart to Krishna, at least while we're there, addressing the Lord, dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead on the behalf of Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas. That's how we can approach them. We cannot approach them directly. We're approaching them on the behalf of Guru. And Krishna is very pleased. This is when Krishna actually reciprocates with us. This is when the purification comes. So we serve the devotees. And this is how we get the mercy of Guru. And when we get the mercy of Guru, what happens? Guru and Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the entire Sri Panchatattva will be pleased. Just like Advaita Acharya, great personalities. See, even the Panchatattva, they all come one by one appearing. Advaita Acharya setting the scene. He worships the Shaligram Shila, Narasingha Shila here, the beautiful big Shaligram Shila. And he was worshipping Narasingha Shila with a tulsi leaf at the bank of Ganges, and praying for the advent of the Supreme Lord. He could feel the suffering and the future suffering of future generations. The great personification of compassion, Advaita Charya. Wow, this is, if you read these beautiful pastimes of Sri Panchatattva especially, then the attraction will be magnified. We want to just study it a bit more deeply, not just superficially. We go into these books deeply, then we get the essence. It's not enough to just lick the jar outside. We have to go get the honey. See, we have to get the actual substance. So Srila Prabhupada's books giving us the substance. And what is the substance? The substance is attraction to Krishna, a loving Krishna, the fulfilling the purpose of human life, a very special opportunity, not to miss it. Not to miss it with material agendas and desires, because it's all temporary, then doesn't satisfy the self. Atmarama, what that means really, self-satisfied. We're meant to be satisfied with Krishna. Of course, easy to say all these things because we are bombarded with material influences, our conditional state. Nevertheless, we take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and have full faith in this. This is how you can tell who's actually advanced in spiritual life, in Adhikari, who has pure, unalloyed faith in the holy names and Guru. Those who have full faith in the injunctions of the Shastras and the words of the spiritual master, all the imports, all the essence of the entire Vedic teaching will be manifest in his heart. That's what we have to do. We just try to understand the mission of Srila Prabhupada and Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and try to understand these things through our relationship with our spiritual masters. And we need them. We need Shiksha Gurus. We need senior devotees. We need to consult them. We need to take shelter of a authority, a Diksha Guru. We take shelter of them because that's how we get the help of Krishna. And this is when we can understand these beautiful esoteric pastimes. Otherwise, just a story form. We don't understand them. We just see all very... And this is when the academia makes a mistake, because they don't have the devotion, they don't have the purity of consciousness, they don't have even the respect that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when they study these books, they don't get it. They think it's a nice poetic treatise or some kind of a verse mythology. It's not a mythology, it's a history. This is a reality here. And not only history, but it's actually still here, alive, see? The spiritual potency is still here. So when we discuss these beautiful pastimes, we also feel enlivened and get the determination and strength. So this is what I can say about this couple of, just to reflect back to the other verses. Today is also Bhishmastami, Lord Bhishma's pastimes. I just compiled one page, if you got enough time, about the pastimes of Bhishma Dev, in case you don't know. Bhishma Dev was one of the Astavasus, the 7 Vasus. In this part, eight verses, and he had manifested in Krishna's pastimes. So the great personalities, obviously, very similar setting. So when Krishna appeared, all the great personalities taking birth to facilitate the pastimes of Krishna and his actions and teachings. So Bhishma Dev is a very important personality and great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'll just read. I'll read as much as I can. Just should be enough time. So the birth and boyhood of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma's name in his boyhood was Deva Vrata. He was the 8th son of Shantanu, a king of the Luna dynasty, and Ganga Devi. This boy was the human embodiment of Diyayu, one of the Astavasus. Shantanu, his father, was the rebirth of another king, Maha-Abhishek. The story concerning this is given in the Mahabharata as follows. King Maha-Abhishek, after his death, attained Vishnu Loka. Once he went to visit Brahma at Satyaloka. At that time, Ganga Devi was also present in Brahma's assembly. In that pious atmosphere, a gentle breeze began to blow, and Ganga Devi's clothes were slightly deranged. Just at that moment, Maha-Abhishek took a stealthy glance at her, and she also returned that glance. That was noted by Brahma, who turned both of them into human beings by a curse. Ganga Devi begged pardon, and Brahma lifted the curse and blessed her that Astavasus would come to the earth to be born as her sons. And afterwards, she could come back to heaven. After that, Ganga Devi was born as a mortal woman in the world under the name of Ganga, and she spent her days in the forests near Ganga river valleys. In those days, the ruler of the Luna dynasty was a king named Pratipa. Having no children, he went to the bank of the Ganga and performed tapas there. Ganga Devi, who was moving about in the forest nearby, saw the king deeply absorbed in tapas. She approached him and sat on his right thigh. She wanted the king to be her husband. He explained to her that the right thigh is the proper seat of the daughter-in-law, so she would become his son's wife in due course. In due course of time, Pratipa has a son, Shantanu, born to him. When Shantanu grew up into a young man, one day he went for a hunt to the Ganga valley, and there he met Ganga Devi. He fell in love with her at first sight and courted her. Ganga Devi agreed to become his wife on the condition that he should not say anything to displease her, and if he violated that condition, she would leave him. The king accepted the condition, and they became man and wife. At about that time, the wife of Dio, one of the Astavasus, happened to see the sacrificial cow of the sage Vasishtha and wished to have it. She expressed her desire to her husband, Dio. Dio, with the other 7 Vasus, went and took away by force Vasishtha's cow. Vasishtha, in his anger, cursed the Astavasus to be born as mortals. They repented and begged pardon from Vasishtha. The sage told them that all of them would be born as the sons of Ganga Devi, and all except Dio, who actually stole the cow, would return to heaven at the time of birth itself. As for Dio, he would continue to live in the world for a long time as an adventurous hero. Ganga Devi became pregnant and gave birth to her first child. She carried the child to the river Ganga and threw it into the river. Shantanu, who followed her up to the river bank, did not say anything against her, remembering this promise. 7 children were born to her, and she threw all of them into the river in this way. When she gave birth to the 8th child, Shantanu insisted that he would not allow her to throw away that child in the river, as he had violated the conditions of his promise. The angry Ganga Devi left the palace with her child. She named it Deva Vrata and brought him up in the forest. The sage Vasishtha and Ganga Devi taught him all branches of knowledge. 32 years later, the king went to the same forest for hunting. He saw a handsome by stopping the flow of the river Ganga. Getting interested in the boy, the king approached him, but by that time he had disappeared. the king prayed to Ganga Devi to give back the child. She appeared with the child and after handing over the child to him vanished. The king returned to the palace with the child. This was in Mahabharata, Adya Parva chapters 9500. Just one section here I read. This is just concluding. The name Bhishma Devavrata was anointed at her appearance. One day King Shantanu reached the forest near the Ganga river valley for hunting. As he was hunting, absorbed in the beauty of the forest scenery, he felt the perfume of musk filling the air in the forest. He wondered where it could come. He went on and trying to find out the source of this smell until he reached the cottage of a fisherman. The fisherman had a daughter named Satyavati. It was from her that the fragrance of musk spread all around. Satyavati's original name was Kali. The fisherman got her from the stomach of a fish. Since she had the smell of a fish, she got named Matsya Gandhi. She used to assist a fisherman in his work as a ferryman in the river Ganga. Once the sage Parashara happened to get into her boat and fell deeply in love with her. The sage removed the smell of fish from her and gave her the perfume of musk instead. But this mystic power, he created a mist at noon and under its cover. As a result, the child Krishna, Vyasa, was born. So there's another name for Vyasa. The child immediately left the mother to perform tapas in the forest after promising to return to her whenever she wished for his presence. Although she gave birth to a child, Parashara blessed her that she would again remain a virgin. The whole episode remained a secret. As usual, Satyavati returned to the fisherman's cottage in the evening and continued to live with him. It is at this stage that Shantanu was attracted by the perfume of musk and came to the cottage where he met Satyavati. The king fell in love with her at first sight. He asked the fisherman to give the girl in marriage to him. But the brave fisherman did not yield to the king's demand immediately. He laid down several conditions, one of which was that Satyavati's sons should succeed to the throne of Shantanu. The king was in a fix. Devavrata was the eldest son and her heir apparent. To deny kingship to his sons would be highly improper. Unable to find a solution to this difficult problem, the king returned to the palace, much depressed and gloomy, where he avoided all company and took his bed, passing his time in sadness and solitude. When Devavrata knew about his father's condition, he called the ministers and asked them about it. They told him everything in details. At once, without informing even his father, Devavrata went to the fisherman's cottage on the bank of the river Ganges and begged for Satyavati on behalf of his father. The fisherman repeated his former condition. Devavrata agreed that Satyavati's son shall be given the right kingship. The fisherman pointed out that disputes were likely to arise between Devavrata's sons and Satyavati's children regarding the right of succession to the throne. At once Devavrata stood up and made a solemn pledge called Vridavrata that he would remain a bachelor for life. The fisherman gave Satyavati to Devavrata to be taken to the king. Devavrata took her to the palace and presented her to his father. The king, when he came to know of the part played by his son in that matter, rose from his bed and embraced Devavrata. With tears of joy and gratitude, the gods showered flowers on the scene because he had taken such a solemn oath He was declared that henceforth he would be known by the name Bhishma. The loving father, Santanu, also gave him a boon that Bhishma would die only when he wished. Only when he wished. Conclusion, Mahabharata Adi-lila Parva, chapter 100. So, it's just about these beautiful pastimes, how Bhishma Dev appeared, such a great personality. And there's more description, of course. This is just his life events, childhood, and his father Shantanu, and how he got the name Bhishma. He became a staunch brahmachari just to please his father, a great martial art teacher. He was a Brahmin. He was throughout all the Vedas glorified, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. Mahajana, he's one of the Mahajanas, the 12 Mahajanas, the great authorities. And Bhishma Dev also took part in the pastimes with the Pandavas in many incidences. And there was a bit of difficulty. Bhishma Dev was very much committed to Duryodhana for many reasons. He became dependent on Duryodhana and many of other great personalities. And he remained silent in the assembly when they abused and disrespected Draupadi, which later on he had to take some reaction. After the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was lying in the bed of arrows for 60 days in blood and pain. And of course, Krishna and the Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj, they all assembled around him and they were questioning him, in which Srila Prabhupada and Bhagavad Vyasa also explains the instructions of Bhishma Dev, the famous instructions of Bhishma Dev, which is very important to all civilized men, the systematic instructions. And at the end, while this is happening, he actually spoke a Shastra within that period, a lot of scriptural and philosophical points discussing with Krishna and Arjuna and Yudhishthira, questions and answers. And of course, the Bhagavatam gives the most important instructions, what we also have to give attention. And at the end, Bhishma Dev looked at Krishna, looked in his eye. My dear Krishna, why am I suffering like this? I'm lying here in a bed of arrows and full of pain and blood. What I've done? I've always been a very faithful lover of yourself. And Krishna looked at him. This is the reaction. This is the consequence that you remain silent. Since you're Brahmana and Kshatriya, you should have, any great authority, highly respected grandsire of the entire dynasty, you should have stand up and stop Duryodhana. Stop all this immoral, offensive disrespect to motherhood, Queen Draupadi. How can you do that? So this is to teach future generations that we should be very careful not to compromise religious principles. A Brahmin is meant to be truthful. If there is a difficulty, they should speak the truth. They're not compromising. A person in knowledge is not supposed to compromise. He's supposed to speak the truth. And so Bhishma Dev was expected to speak the truth, but he because of his implication with the Duryodhana's family and other reasons. And of course, it's Krishna's arrangement, is the pastimes here, because they're just playing the role. Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam regarding Bhishma Dev that sometimes these great personalities, they take birth and play the role of an enemy. That's their service. So, of course, there's much deep-rooted causes here, but this is just what we see from the story. And just to teach us, when we read the stories of Mahabharata, they're teaching us every aspect of human life and how to conduct ourselves and how to be moral, ethical, not to speak of religious, and not to speak of developing our Krishna consciousness. There's all these teachings are there. So that's why the great teachings of Mahabharata, and same with Ramayana, all beautiful stories. And Vyasadeva compiled these literatures for our benefit, for the benefit of Kali Yuga. Because in this day and age, we're not so philosophical. Not many people can understand the in-depth meaning of Vedanta Sutra or many other Devanagari messages. So this is when great personalities like Vyasa put a story form full of lessons and full of pastimes and interactions. So this is Bhishmadev's. It's much more to Bhishmadeva, of course. It's just a simple introduction to it. Hare Krishna, Vishvastambhi ki jai, Shiva Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.